I'd like to call the Board of Public Works meeting to order. Clerk Galeazzi, could you please take roll call?
Alderman Sevenick.
Here.
Alderman Langdon.
Here.
Alderman Ted Grady.
Here.
Alderman Rapella.
Here.
Alderman Nichols. Here. Alderman Taylor. Alderman Schmidt. Alderman Tom Grady is absent.
Thank you, Clerk. First on the agenda, item C is minutes to approve from the January 20th, 2020 Board of Public Works meeting. Do I have a motion? Alderman Taylor.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 20th, 2020.
I have a motion. Is there a second? I'll second. Motion by Alderman James Taylor, second by Alderman Randy Rapella. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Nay. Minutes are approved. Okay, we have five discussion action items. And so we will start with the election of officers. The first will be officer for the Chair of Public Works. Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Alderman Langdon for chair.
Second.
I have a nomination for Alderman Langdon, second by Alderman James Taylor. Are there any other nominations? Alderman Rapella?
Not yet, Randy. We're dealing with one. Just say it one more time.
Alderman Taylor. Is there any nominations for chair? Any other nominations for chair? See, there are no other nominations. We have a unanimous consent. Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you, Chair. Seeing that there are no other nominations, I move that we ask for unanimous consent for Alderman Langdon.
Second.
I have a motion by Alderman Sevenick and a second by Alderman Nichols. So that one is done. So Alderman Langdon, thank you, everyone. We'll move into the Chair of Public Works now.
For Vice Chair.
Yep. So the next one, are there any nominations for Vice Chair of Board of Public Works? Alderman Rapella.
Thank you very much, Chairman Langdon. I'd like to nominate Alderman James Taylor as Vice Chair for the Public Works.
Alderman James Taylor, nominated for Vice Chair of Public Works. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Alderman Sevenick?
Thank you, Chair. At this time, seeing there are no other candidates, I'll move that we ask for unanimous consent to approve Alderman James Taylor as Vice Chair.
I have a motion and a second by Alderman Sevenick, second by Alderman Ted Grady. Are there any other nominations?
No, that was it. I closed it.
Oh, you closed it. I'm sorry. Unanimous consent. Vice Chair now is Alderman James Taylor. All right. Thank you. Okay, so the next three items are kind of, well, so item number 2 is 2020 Water Main Reconstruction Contract A. That's 9th and 7th and State Street. Alderman Adam?
Alderman. Director.
Director,
You almost got demoted.
Director Adam.
What you have here before us would be, we're doing just A. If Scott or Adam Smith would like to make a comment in regards to these?
We have 3 different contracts this year.
Tell everybody at home who we are.
Hello, everyone at home. My name is Adam Smith. I'm the water utility manager. This year we had, we broke up our water main reconstruction projects into 3 different contracts to make sure that they would be within our budget, with a little bit of, with the Lake Road East being a little bit of a unique project. We want to make sure that our budget could support these projects. So that's why they are in 3 different contracts this year. Our utility commission approved all the contracts and they are within budget.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, my mic on.
Oh, yep. Alderman Sevenick?
Thank you, Chair. If it's all right with the rest of the committee, I would say that seeing it's under budget and has been approved by the Water Committee, that we go ahead and approve items 2, 3, and 4. Item 2 being the 9th, 7th, and State Street. Item 3 being the reconstruction contract B with Lake Road East. And item 4 being the 2020 water main construction contract C with Lake Road East connection.
Thank you, Alderman Sevenick. Are there any, have a motion by Alderman Sevenick for items 2, 3, and 4 together, and a second by Alderman Ted Grady. Any further discussion? Alderman Nichols?
Thank you. My questions are pertaining to the Lake Road project. The first being, I know that the residents there are looking to complete their own road project once the water main project is completed. So do you have an idea of timelines for the water main project?
Yes, we do. We're gonna start the Lake Road East. We like, depending on how the spring goes, but we would like to do that first, because it is a directional drill. And there is some complications that can occur with any such construction. So, talking with the contractor, they would like to start hopefully in March, if weather permits. There will be, as soon as we have Public Works approval and the Common Council approval, we are very adamant about being in contact with the Lake Road East residents and making sure that they are aware of the limited amount of space that they will have to get in and out of that Lake Road East. The communication is gonna be much better than, say, last year we had a little bit of a problem on Willow Lane. But we are gonna be adamant this year that communication goes out soon, as soon as we have all the approvals, and that everyone is gonna be aware of the timetable and what is gonna be expected within that construction site.
Okay, thank you for that. And then my second question has to do with the fact that Willow Lane, the street reconstruction was never completed. So with Willow Lane being the access point to Lake Park Road and Public Works needing to make sure Willow Lane gets completed, I want to be sure that, we're aware of the moving parts there and how we can work together to make it easy for everyone involved.
I don't anticipate significant amount of time on Willow Lane, nor significant disruptance to the work going on Lake Road. Willow Lane should be paved in a matter of half a day to a day at the top, at the most. But I
Okay.
would anticipate a half a day of construction out there.
Then there is the moving in and out of equipment. If they're gonna move in for a half a day, they'll probably be gone in and out in a day.
Yeah, there'll be, part of it as far as milling off the wedge surface, or the wedge material up to the curb line. that's part of a day, and then actual paving operations, again, that's only gonna be a half a day at the most. I would anticipate that there would be some coordination with them as far as the amount of trucking and things like that coming in and out. But the operation that they're doing, I'm not anticipating a lot of, heavy traffic in and out of that site, just because of the way that they're going about their process.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page and aware of what's happening, going on down there. Thank you.
Alderman Repella.
Thank you very much. Alderman Langdon. Corey, I went down oops. Corey, I went down Willow Lane on Sunday looking at the sculptures. Great sculpture of Mr. Tungate there. And that road was nice and smooth, Willow Lane.
Not completely.
How can it be improved? I mean, what's gonna happen when you,
I guess I would hope that it's smooth, it's new
great.
pavement.
Yeah.
But the pavement's not up to the curb flange. It is for the short distance, the 18 inches off of the curb,
Okay,
but, it's not something that you would just
Okay.
decide to leave now for the next 15 or 20 years. It's only 2 inches of asphalt. It's not
okay,
intended for a longevity type
understood.
process.
Thank you. It was just a very smooth ride. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I have a motion for all three by Alderman Sevenick and a second by Alderman Ted Grady. Clerk Aliazi, could we take a roll call, please? These will be all three together.
Motion carried on roll call 7-0.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And,
Do you want me to explain this next part?
sure, put your mic on. Alderman Sevenick?
Okay. So Alderman Nichols wanted us, before we approved a resolution in our regular council meeting. Oh, someone must have turned it back off. Alderman Nichols wanted us to, discuss this also with the public to get an idea of our new public works facility that we're planning on, constructing already. I believe the start date is roughly April. Before we pass that resolution, we wanted to be able to provide more information out there. There is a PowerPoint presentation, and Adam can just take it from here and
Sure. Yeah, sort of recap what we're looking for at the Board of Public Works is looking for approval to proceed with the construction of the Public Works facility. We recently received bids, and although it came in a little over what we have budgeted, we do have a plan in place to take, to be able to afford to do this. So what you see here is our existing facility, built in '63, quite small. Almost all of our equipment sort of outgrown the facility as we have as well. And with it being a public drop-off site, it does create numerous possible conflicts with our equipment and with the general public. Here's some pictures of the facility. Our maintenance shop is really inadequate, and it's an accident waiting to happen. In addition to what we have for vehicle storage, there's barely much room between the equipment, and you always need somebody spotting you as you're backing in and out, especially in the winter months. So what we're proposing to build is a maintenance shop with 3 large drive-through bays to accommodate our garbage trucks and our plow trucks. In addition to all our other equipment, our vehicle storage area is going to pretty much double in size, and this should provide us with adequate space to house our equipment, maintain our equipment now and hopefully for a little ways into the future, quite a ways into the future. Here's the layout of what we're looking at doing. This, what you see there is Baldwin Street. The general public would come in and head back to the yard waste and recycle drop-off center, and they'd pass by the office. Our equipment would come in off of what is kind of like Swiderski Way, which would be closer to Heckrot and the Sitco station down by Melissa, trying to eliminate the potential conflicts with the public. And what we're looking at doing is a two-step funding process here. One would be the interim financing or the construction loan, which is the resolution that you'll be acting on at on the Common Council. And that is to make payments, progress payments during the construction. Once construction is complete, then the USDA loan will kick in and make up, or will cover the cost of the building primarily. And right now, the loan is amortized over 40 years. We have a interest rate, we're locked in at 4.25%. However, at the time of closing, if it's less than that, we will be able to lock in at the lower rate. How we're doing this is the Menasha Redevelopment Authority issues the debt on behalf of the city, and then we in turn will be making lease payments to the RDA to cover the annual debt service payments. What's allowing us to do this, to make it affordable for us, is that there is some flexibility in our payments, payback. Early on, it's going to be primarily interest, and then some minimum principal payments until we shed some of the, or a majority of the steam plant debt, and then we can aggressively pay down the loan. So the total cost of the construction contracts is up there. We have design fees, design reimbursables, above ground fuel, fueling station. Currently we have 2 underground tanks. We're going to remove them. We are going to get some new maintenance shop equipment, office break room furniture. Because of the location, we do have to consult or have an archaeologist come and monitor when we're working on foundations and our pipe work. We do have to remove the existing cold storage building and the underground storage tanks. And then also within that, there is some legal and administrative fees, and the interim loan interest costs gives us a grand total of about $11,438,000. And as you saw before, it leaves us with a little bit of a deficit. How we are planning on funding this is the USDA loan of $11,015,000 is going to cover the main building. We intend to use some stormwater funds for the site stormwater work or storm sewer work. And then we're going to utilize funds 2020, 2021, and potentially 2022 of our city garage fund, which many of you know is our equipment replacement fund. And we're looking to utilize those amounts to balance out the project. We're looking to be able to use the city garage funds by deferring some equipment purchases, and then those deferred pieces of equipment or the dollar amounts will be made up with either downsizing our equipment, in other words, spending less than what we currently have, or there are some opportunities for us to eliminate some equipment to make up that difference. So here's the timeline. We're looking to have the Board of Public Works approve moving forward with the construction tonight, and then we'll bring it back to the Common Council looking for approval on the 17th. Provided we do get approval, then we have a contractor waiting in the wings to demo the cold storage building and remove the underground storage tanks, at which time then Myron Construction and their crews and their subcontractors will come in April and start in earnest to construct a new facility. We're hoping, and there's a little bit of a push here to try and make sure that we can get the parking facility or the vehicle storage area completed before December, so that We're ready to deal with winter. And then we're looking at for the construction of the maintenance and facility pretty much completed by April, and then paving to follow. So that's what you have before you tonight. Any questions?
Are there any other questions on this? Seeing none, can I have a motion to forward number 5, Park Works Facility Project Contracts? Do I have a motion? Alderman James Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion to forward to the council Public Works Facility Project Contracts.
I have a motion by Alderman Taylor. Do I have a second? Motion by Alderman Taylor, second by Alderman Repella, to forward this to council. Okay. Couple questions. Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. And thank you for going through that presentation to inform the folks here tonight and folks who might be watching later this week. This is the very first time that concrete numbers have been presented either to the Board of Public Works, to the Common Council, and to the general public. So I felt it really important that we take the time to go through that, present the information in a transparent fashion, and have an open discussion here at Public Works as part of that process. So even before we may or may not approve a resolution on the agenda this evening. I do have a couple questions based on our conversations earlier in a workshop, and also some things in your memo, Director Alex. And at the bottom of the first page of the memo, it says that not included in the 11,100,000 and some thousand are costs for the demolition of the cold storage, the removal of the existing fuel station, archaeology monitoring, interim financing, interest, and bond council fees. So were these things that were included in the original estimate and then pulled out as you were exploring the financial options, or something else?
No, as I reread this, the interim financing and the bond council fees or the administrative and legal were always part of the 11,000,015, but they were not part of the 10,740,000, which was primarily the construction. The cold storage demo and the removal existing fuel station tanks, that was part of the plan. However, it was omitted from the 10,740,000, and we did not put it in our operations budget. That was an oversight on our part. The archaeology monitoring, that came at a later date after we had started the process and got our budget numbers for this project.
So back up and tell me again about the part that was not included in the budget.
Archaeology monitoring was not included in the budget anywhere at any time. Cold storage removal and the removal existing fuel station. The existing fuel tanks was part of the plan. However, I thought it was part of the 11,000,015. It was not. And we did not budget anything for it in our operations budget, so. That was an oversight on my part.
Okay. And then tell us a little bit more about the USDA loan itself, or let me back up for a second. Contingency, we talked about 5% contingency
Correct,
at the workshop. So
correct.
tell me about that 5% contingency.
When we originally applied for the loan, our contingency was like, 500,000. It was, and I didn't do the math to figure out what the percentage was. However, once we got more concrete numbers, discussing it with our construction manager, Myron, and with Ms. Engel from the USDA, 5% is a standard number. And seeing that we had more concrete numbers, we felt that that was adequate, so it's 5% of the construction cost.
Okay. And where the cost came in for the entire project, that contingency is being used?
No, it's still in here. It's built in. It's part of that, part of the numbers that we are showing you. There is this contingency of, we still got 400.
It says, after figuring in these costs, the total cost for the new facility is 11.4 million,
Leaving us, we're short funding.
of which 433,000 is contingency. Bottom of the memo.
Correct, there's 433,000 in contingencies built in that number. So
Okay.
there's gonna be things that are gonna come up during construction that are unplanned, unforeseen. I just wanted to point out that there is some money in there.
Okay, I was understanding that as we've already incorporated that, but then the next sentence says we're still 423,000 short.
We are.
Okay. So,
So I'm pointing out is that we're short funding, but there is also about the same amount of money in contingencies built into this, but we can't count on that contingencies because chances are we're gonna end up utilizing those funds for something unforeseen at this point in time.
and that was my next question, how we would have changed for any unforeseen change orders.
Obviously, we will deal with each situation as it arises and if it is necessary. And if the funding is available, we could, if it's necessary, I think that would sort of be the driving factor in regards to that, so.
So the other thing that we talked about that was not mentioned in this presentation was a second option. You presented the information about deferred purchases from the Public Works Fund and Stormwater Utility Fund usage, but option 2 was not mentioned. Could you tell us about option 2?
Sure, option 2 is that we could obviously borrow for the additional funding. With the USDA, we are allowed up to 10% of our original obligation without needing to go to Washington for approval. We would be then locked in at the rate at which time we commit, or they commit to us, and the current rate is 2.75% right now. In order to do that, though, that would change, we would be required to change our lease agreements with the RDA and the RDA's financials, which they do need to become solvent and remain solvent. So we would have to sort of take a look at that and make sure that that is a viable option for us, but that is an option. We could also look at borrowing funds from the State Trust Fund. We looked at that too, but once we found out we could borrow the additional funds from the USDA at 2.75%, I think the State Trust Fund is like 3.25 or 3.45 right now. But that would go against our debt, and that's where our recommendation is to utilize our city garage funds to sort of make up that difference. That is sort of what we're recommending that we do.
And would any changes in the USDA financing, if additional funds were borrowed, would that have any effect on the interim financing process?
No, it would not, because the USDA loans does not come into play until the overall construction is completed, and then we close out the construction loan with USDA funds, so.
Okay. And then as it stands today, if if the recommendation were to be followed, does that have any impact to the development agreement with the RDA?
If we follow through with what we're recommending, no, we do not need to revisit that.
Okay. I think this is a project that everyone up here is interested in having happen. I question the use of funds from the garage by deferring other purchases, because delayed investments always cost more. I also question the use of storm utility funds, because folks pay into that fund for the continued use, upkeep, and maintenance of our stormwater utility. And their rates are, they expect their rates to fund that, and not necessarily a project specific to the city of Menasha. I'm also very curious about exploring to its fullest extent option number 2, only because, as indicated, there are parts of the project that would be put off or not considered, like a canopy for the fueling station and the cold storage unit. And since we're talking about a 30 to 40 year time span and a big investment, it's worth exploring that cost, and it enables us to make a completely, or at least a better informed decision if we look at those options. And we have the RDA is intricately involved in this, and I think we have a responsibility to at least ask them if they are open to consideration of a different kind of agreement. And I will listen to what others have to say.
Alderman Sevenick?
Thank you, Chair. I apologize that we didn't show option 2, because nobody during the workshop had any interest in it, and that's why it wasn't shown. That was wasn't them, it was me that asked them not to show it, because I didn't think it was an option. And I actually think it's a poor choice of an option for our community to take. We don't need more debt. If we have resources, we have funding, and we have our own crews willing to do and step up to the plate to even do more to make this facility work, I'm all in favor of that. I hate to see us continue to borrow and borrow and borrow. Our other options, we have, I disagree with the stormwater utility thing. What I mean by that is, I think we should be using stormwater utility money there, because we haven't received stormwater credits out in that area, and it's just another funding source. I mean, we could go down the line with stormwater utility funding. I mean, boy, we take money out of there to pay for part of Sam's salary, or city attorney and things like that. As far as a city garage, I think that's a smart choice. The equipment replacement fund, both I and the mayor had problems with using those funds, but the crew did a good job of explaining that, okay, if we do use equipment replacement funding dollars, it should be towards equipment. And that's where they're putting those dollars, towards equipment type items such as the, if I'm mistaken, correct me, the ground, on the above-ground fueling station, the
Maintenance shop equipment.
maintenance shop equipment, even, I'd go as far as saying even the office, and to a degree. I don't know about the archaeology monitoring, but I also wanted to say too, that contingency, that's a small amount, and, all projects that I've ever been involved with had a contingency, and you have to have that contingency. Just like staff said, you don't know what you're gonna run into, and it's always good to have that small cushion. And then if you don't run into those things, then that's less that you have to use down the road. It's just kind of a good thing to have down the road. I don't think we've ever done a project that didn't have a contingency attached to it. Even our street construction, we think we have up to a 10% contingency if we don't believe that, you know, it's good work. You were talking about Willow Street before. I thought it was done. And I was upset because it looked rough and bad, and Randy said it's smooth, but I thought it was a little bumpy, and I thought, wow, I can't believe the Willow people aren't upset, but I'm glad to hear today you said that was the first seal coat. So anyways, I'm very pleased with this because, and I'm gonna tell the public this, I actually thought that this project was gonna come in way over budget by about $2 million. And I'm not sure if the mayor kinda shared that feeling, but I came to the bid opening with the concern that that's what was gonna happen, and we came in pretty much right in line. And actually, the people that, was it Myron that did the bid opening? They were surprised too how well this came in. I wouldn't wanna delay this any further. I think what's being proposed is outstanding. I don't think it could go any smoother for us. It's been a bumpy road. We've been discussing this
Long time.
a long time, a very long time. And I've never been 100%, let's do this city garage, unless these kind of numbers came in, and they came in. I think Tim knows that. He was worried about me, because if it came in over that budget amount, I was gonna say, we can't do it. So, I think we need to move forward here. I'm not interested in doing option 2 whatsoever. I think we delay things, we make it rougher. The best thing about this is that we get the city garage employees involved. They wanna be a part of this project. They're willing to save us $15,000 by putting in the flagpoles themselves. Things like that, I like that. So, when we go back into the regular meeting and we approve that resolution, I think that's the direction we should take. But I think Alderman Taylor has a different type motion. I think the motion that he did was not completely in order, and maybe that'll help out with Alderman Nichols, some of her concerns.
So yes, we have recommendation. Alderman Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know how different attorneys like to have us remove their motions differently or have the body dispose of it, so I guess I made a general motion that the Public Works Facility project contracts to approve to the council. And there is 2 options, and there is a recommendation, so I guess, how would you like us to proceed as far as disposing of my motion?
The appropriate motion could be to move to do a unibus amendment to the motion on the floor to substitute the language that's in the memo, the recommendation for the language that's on the floor, and if there's a second, then that amendment would substitute for the existing motion.
Okay. There's for the public, there's 2 ways to go with this. Our approved amount for the USDA loan is $11,015,000, leaving us about $423,000 in short. one option is to borrow additional funds for the shortfall. And then another option is to, would be funded through the storm sewer work, stormwater utility fund, and the remainder of the city garage fund through deferred equipment purchases. So I will amend what I said with a motion to approve and forward to the council to approve the construction of the public works facility with the wash bay and the infrared heat as outlined in accompanying documentations with the use of stormwater utility fund and the city garage fund to cover the funding shortfall.
Thank you, Vice Chair Taylor.
I'll
So
second.
we have an amendment by Alderman Taylor to go with the number 5 Public Works Facility Project contracts. That was the amendment, and Alderman Sevenick just seconded that. Is there any other discussion? Alderman Ted Grady?
Thank you, Chair. So does that mean then that option 2 is not even on the agenda on this? I mean, it's completely off? So if we do run into a shortfall and we do have to borrow some extra money or do something, where do we stand? Is it
That's what the contingency.
just come back? Well, that whole 400,000 is gonna be there, but, okay. So you're more or less saying the contingency of the 5% offsets the borrowing for option 2. You're hoping that's a,
And
it's a
all the other
wash.
things.
Right, okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Grady. That's a good question. Alderman Nichols?
Thank you. I do have concerns about the contingency as well. I will support moving this out of committee. However, I will be working over the next 2 weeks to get more of my questions answered.
Okay, any other further questions? Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In our workshop, I had talked about a few things that the RDA borrowing of this money, we will have to have a bridge loan until around 2025, 2026. And then at that time, the RDA, the redevelopment authority, will go out and initiate this USDA loan for $11,015,000. And at that time, the RDA has to be solvent. Right now, the RDA is about $500,000 in debt. And my question tonight was in the workshop, if the RDA isn't solvent by 2025, what happens? What are our options if they're still in debt and they can't leverage this USDA loan? So I guess that's a big question. And also in the workshop, as we've done with utility in the past, we've done with the City of Neenah Council, we've asked that we've had a joint meeting. And I think since the RDA is going to take on this responsibility with all their members, with all our members, I'm going to ask this next 2 weeks, the council president and the mayor, that we have a joint meeting with the RDA, so we're all in the same room, we all hear the same questions for a project of this magnitude. It's a big purchase for the community. So that's my questions, and hopefully we get some answers when this goes to council.
If I may, Alderman Taylor, the bridge loan will just get us to probably 2021. Then the USDA loan will kick in, okay? But we have up until 2024, I found some information, and I'll just read this. Beginning in the year 2024, debt service coverage ratio of at least 1.1 will be maintained, with debt service to include the loan payments plus all required reserves. If the DSCR drops below 1.1 for any audited year or quarterly financial report, then an independent management consultant shall be engaged at the expense of the applicant, RDA, to prepare a fiscal strategy report that documents how the debt service requirement will be met. This must be provided to the RD no later than 90 days after the quarter in which the DSCR drops below 1.1. I will follow up with the USDA and just sort of clarify the concerns. It's not like they're gonna come and call the loan. It looks like that they're gonna allow us an opportunity to solve our financial dilemma or, deal with the point at which we drop below that solvency or whatever, so.
Alderman Vice Chair Taylor?
I guess, back in November, these are the questions I asked former Director Jacobs, and this is how it was kind of explained to me, how I just explained it. That takes a different tack on that, but, I guess getting us both together in the same room and also, getting those answers, if they're not solvent, what vehicles do we have? What do we have to do? We have to borrow money? Do we have to sell different property? So I guess that's the question, an important question, for us to know by that time.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate your, the explanation you gave us here too. Thank you.
Okay, seeing that, are there any further discussion? Okay, so we have a motion, amendment to the motion to move the Public Works Facility project contracts. It was a recommendation by staff, that was the amendment. So we will take a roll call on that, Clerk Galiazzi? The amendment, please. Yeah.
Motion carried on roll call 7-0.
Okay, now we need to take a vote on
As
the,
amended.
as amended.
Motion carried on roll call 7-0.
Okay, a lot of good questions. Thank you, everyone. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Taylor.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn by Alderman Taylor, second by Alderman Grady. We are adjourned.